worry about a primary challenger any more than you do about a general election challenger, and because anybody can run for office. So what I've done, whether it's primary or whether it's general, just do the very best job where you are, and people will recognize it, and they'll reelect you. And in this case, I would expect to be renominated for the same reason. And I don't worry about who my opponent is. Don't talk about my opponents much. I just concentrate on what I'm trying to do to serve Iowa. I love my work. I think if I'm reelected, I'll be chairman of the Judiciary Committee again. I will be President Pro Tem of the United States Senate, what some people call Dean of the Senate, and I will be able to be in a powerful position to serve you and to serve the people of Iowa. And I don't take anything for granted, so I'm working the same way I would always work.
There's a recent debate on Iowa PBS. Your Democratic challengers, they felt that you were out of touch with Iowans and too embedded in Washington.
Did I interpret your question right, that some people are saying I'm out of touch and I've lost touch with Iowans? Well, that's a very easy answer. I started what's called the full Grassley. I didn't name it that. Somebody else did. But going to each of the 99 counties every year to hold a Q&A with my constituents. Could be a high school. It could be a factory. It could be like yesterday, a couple open town meetings in northwest Iowa where anybody can come. It could be a hospital. It could be a Rotary Club. But I'm trying to keep on top with my constituents. And then I also say that this is the best way to do it. Visit each of the 99 counties every year for 42 years or 41 years in a row. And so far this year, I've been in 58 of the 99 counties. And that's the way you keep in touch. So I come home every weekend as well. So I just don't think that it's a valid criticism that anybody says that I'm out of touch with Iowans. In fact, it's intellectually dishonest for them to say that because, and they're misleading the people of Iowa. The people of Iowa know that I work hard. For instance, when we're in session, I'm in session until I had COVID, November 2020. I cast 27 years of votes without missing a vote, and I cast 8,927 votes during that period of time. I missed 10 votes, and I'm back trying to break that record again. And also, then when we aren't in session, I'm home in Iowa doing what I told you I did yesterday, what I do every year for 41 years, and being in every county this year. And then I'll have 3 Q&As with constituents in Eastern Iowa today. So I think you can see how dishonest it is for people to say that I've lost touch with Iowans. Not only that, but keeping on top of the thousands and thousands of emails I get a week, and sometimes that's a couple thousand a day. But when you keep track of people through emails and through face-to-face contacts, there's no way anybody could legitimately say that I lost touch with Iowans.
Now, I know you've mentioned this before about age. If you win re-election, you'll be in your mid-90s by the time the term's over. And once again, some of the critics feel like it's time that you retire. That's what some people have said.
I faced the same thing 6 years ago, and I'm still alive. And so I don't know how, you know, the only way you end this life is God takes it. And I think that if I'm in a powerful position to serve Iowans, that no new person coming along could do it. And then another thing to tell you, you know, in Washington, I go to bed at 9, get up at 4, do a couple miles, shower, go to the office by 6 or a little bit before 6, stay in the office until usually 6:30 when the Senate shuts down, go home and do the same thing again. So I don't think people can say that I'm shortening my workday any just because of my age. I'm just as active now as I've always been, and I intend to be that way through another 6 years of the term.
You're probably in better shape than I am, actually, to tell you the truth, because I know you run quite often.
I can give you some advice. I didn't start running until I'm 65, So you probably aren't close to that age, and you can get started a little earlier than me. And I think since they say knees are good for 30 years, I've got another 7 years that ought to be able to run.
Now, once the primary is over, what will be your focus then for the general election for November?
My focus for the general election would be what I'm hearing from Iowans: fighting inflation, high energy costs, and getting a secure border. And then that's a very general thing that almost every Republican senator ought to be involved in, but it's also a focus for me. But if you want to talk about things that I'm individually working on, I would say there's three bipartisan bills. One to get drug prices down. That's Grassley Wyden. Another one to take on big tech, because those platforms discriminate against individuals and small businesses by prioritizing their own products. And so Klobuchar and Grassley have a bill in that would tackle big tech, anti-discrimination policies. And then thirdly, we have a tremendous problem. In fact, it's one of my meetings yesterday in Cherokee with about 100 cattlemen. They have a hard time finding a market and get a fair price because of the monopolistic practices of the four companies that monopolize the slaughter of cattle. And so Grassley, Fisher, Tester, Wyden is a bipartisan bill that actually has 9 Republicans and 10 Democrat co-sponsors that we're proceeding with. And that's going to be my focus between now and the end of the year, and hopefully get some of these things accomplished between now and even the November election.
And another bipartisan thing is the Eagle Act. Do you think that it has a chance of getting passed?
Well, it should be passed years ago. I wrote this bill after the Parkland killing by the kid that shot 12 or 13 kids in Parkland, Florida. Eagle is the mascot for that high school. Visiting with parents, we developed this legislation. This legislation would build on a Secret Service program to identify people that are harms to themselves or harm to society as a whole for intervention purposes. And we would extend that to school personnel, teachers, etc. And the idea is to just prevent crime and make schools safer. And it's bipartisan and bicameral, and it should have passed. But there's you can't get a bill like that up. Schumer won't bring it up, not because he's against the bill, but it would attract a whole bunch of other pieces of legislation. So my chance of getting it passed is what you call unanimous consent. That's a special process in the Senate. But one senator can object to any bill, and one senator objected my bill for not very good reasons, but that's where you are. But maybe there's a group of senators that are working on some legislation over this week for safer schools, and it could be that my bill could be wrapped into that.
Do you favor any kind of gun control?
Well, I'm on that specific question. There's two things you have to take into consideration. First, you wouldn't deny discussion of any issue in the Congress of the United States, but when it comes to the Bill of Rights and the Second Amendment is part of the Bill of Rights, you got to make sure that what you do isn't unconstitutional. And then for right now, the reason I wouldn't discuss much about gun legislation because Murphy and Cornyn are leading a bipartisan group to see what sort of a compromise they can come up with that would deal with guns, background checks, and school safety and all those things.
What's your thoughts again on Roe v. Wade? Is there anything new about, like, I know you're really upset about the leak. I don't know if there's anything new with that, anything new with the investigation.
Well, the investigation on that leak is going on within the Supreme Court and their police department, and I'll just let them do that. But the leak is historically different than any other leak, and there aren't many leaks at all out of the Supreme Court in 240 years, but this is the first time an actual document has been leaked, and the person that leaked it has to be punished. I don't know whether there's a criminal law that was broken, but surely a reason for disbarment of a young lawyer that should know better. And when it comes to Roe v. Wade, I guess I'm not going to comment until the final decision comes out, which I think will be at no later than June 30th, and then reach a decision. But I'm not afraid to tell people that I'm pro-life, and if Roe were overturned, I would consider that a victory for the constitutional protection for babies in the womb.
I was just going to ask you, it seems like people are so polarized when it comes to politics more than ever before. I know you talked about some of these bipartisan efforts that you're working on, but what can be done to bring people together? Because it feels like people are just kind of at each other.
Yeah. I'm going to give you a short answer, but it's a question that I answer at almost every town meeting that takes me about 5 minutes because there's 4 or 5 facets to it. But I would just answer one that would be particularly close to your profession of journalism, whether it's radio or print. Journalists tend to make big things out of disagreement in Congress, and when people get along, it's never published. But the disagreement is made a big thing of. So people are constantly hearing about disagreements in Congress all the time. And so there is too much partisanship, but not as much as people think. Republicans and Democrats in the United States Senate get along pretty good. And I'll just leave it at that and just say to every journalist, try to talk about things when people are cooperating as much as when there's disagreement and people would have a different opinion of in the Senate. I'll say one other point that I make, and that is the United States Senate requires 60 votes to get probably 99% of our work done, and you can't. You got to have bipartisanship to get 60 votes in the United States Senate, or nothing ever would get done, and some things get done.